Welcome to the autosportradio.com 2021 show. We are still at the Grant King Race Shops at 8155 Crawfordsville Road in Indianapolis. And if you want to stop and see a race car being built, rebuilt, fixed, done, whatever they're doing to it, stop by, because Top Gun is housed and garage right here, and they work on a car here every day. So if you want to see what it's like, come on down, take a look. Today's show is presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, SVRA, and McGilvery's Pub and Eatery and Speedway, and VP Insurance. A couple of things. If you can't wait to see a dentist, I got one that you will say that. I can't wait to see. They're phenomenal. It's the Indy Dental Group. Indy 500 veteran Dr. Jack Miller and his wife, Dr. Liz Lewis, have a spectacular practice. The people there are phenomenal. You'll love it. If it's time to see a dentist, I highly recommend go see them. Make an appointment. The number is 317-846-6125. And it came out that Robin Miller is back riding. I guess he's going to be back riding again, so he's coming along reasonably well. But Bob Jenkins still needs your thoughts and prayers. He's having a struggle. So if you think of it, think of Bob. You think you need a roof repair or a roof replacement? Do the good thing. Call Reed Roofing. Talk to my IT genius, Ted. He will take care of you, set everything up. So give him a call. His number is 317-500-3370. Have your roof looked at, and if you need to get an estimate, they can do it. My computer guy, Steve Fries, has an office. He's located at 549 Fleming Street, which is just west of Lyndhurst on Washington Street. That's right. The next building off the corner behind the dental office. So if you have a problem, call him, tell him your problem. If you can't get to his shop, he can come to you. His number is 317-938-7711. And as the insurance commissioner says, when you go to renew your insurance, check around. Because once they get comfortable with you, they tend to kind of increase the price. So check it out. And I recommend wholeheartedly VP Insurance and Speedway. Give Mike Pardee a call. Tell him what you're looking for. If it's a car, commercial property, your home, or life insurance, Mike can help you. Give him a call. Tell him what you're looking for. You'll be surprised you get better coverage for less money. It's 317-248-0070. You wonder yourself, why do these guys and gals like driving these Indy cars? Well, why don't you find out and take a ride in a two-seater with the Indy Racing Experience? You can go online to indyracingexperience.com and find a date that'll work for you and book it. And in the promo box, put DK1, you get a 50% discount, or you can call Shonda at the office. The number is 317-243-7171. And if you wanted a vintage car, Indy car, sprint car, midget car, but you got to, or you have one that needs to be restored, call the Grant King Shops. They can help you in both ways. Their number is 317-820-3595. And this weekend, they're running at Nashville, and the Trans Am Series will be there. So if you're going down to Nashville, take a look. You're going to see a great race. Trans Am is back alive again. So check it out. They're going to be there. And while you're at it, go to svra.com and subscribe to their magazine, Speed Tour. You get some great stories, great pictures. Some of the drivers that were in Trans Am originally and in IndyCar are still driving cars in the vintage event. So check it out. And while you're there, click on the subscription tour and get the Speed Tour magazine. And while you're there, also look at the schedule. See if there's an event coming up that's near you. Go see it. You'll love it. My guest today is somebody I've been wanting to get, but unfortunately he's been working 7 days a week, about 20 hours a day, getting prepared. He's a crew chief for Top Gun Racing. Most of IndyCar fans have heard of it, seen him. They made an attempt at the Speedway, but they're ready to go for the Grand Prix. And my guest is the crew chief, as I said, for Top Gun, Roy Wilkerson. And Roy, thanks for taking the time. I know your crew is probably fumbling around trying to figure out what to do next while you're here.
No, they're pretty well. They know what's going on. They're actually there at lunch, so it's a good thing.
Now, you got an associate mechanical engineering degree from Purdue. Did you go to school intending to get into motorsports?
Actually, I didn't go to school until after I was already in motorsports.
Oh.
I thought it would be advantageous to learn a little more about what was going on and how to do it, how it's designed. So I was doing it at nights.
And I did notice that you started off, the first job that I found online was out in Ventura, California for the Pacific Coast Racing Team. Was that the first team you became a crew chief for?
No, actually, oh boy, I started in '86 with Jack Roush, Trans Am, and crew was a chief on a car there. Then I went to IndyCar in '88. I became, first time I ever chiefed a car would have been '92 at the Speedway.
For whom?
For Bernstein, Quaker State. I was in charge of the car that was on the pole and didn't make the race.
Well, yes, it seemed to me that ended rather quickly, if I remember.
Yes, it did.
Being a crew chief, what are your responsibilities? You have other crew members, but are you the guy that directly directs everybody to do whatever their job is they're assigned to?
Yeah, it's one of the things that's your biggest item is preparation. So you get everybody guided in the same direction and make sure everybody's working in the same direction with the same goals. You have certain people, like we have Bridget, who takes care of sub-assembly and gearbox. And then when she's not doing that, she works on other parts of the car. One of my biggest jobs is to look forward. What are we going to need next week? What are we going to need in 2 weeks? So it's a lot of experience looking ahead, thinking about what you need and how to get it and where you're getting it from. And you wear many hats at this level.
You just completed a test down in Sebring.
Yep.
In preparation, I'm sure, for the GP, which is on the road course here at the Speedway. What did you learn there, and how did things go?
We thought overall it went very well. The car did a couple things early on we didn't like, or the driver didn't like, and we made changes and it reacted like it should have, and the driver got much more comfortable. We feel that with the ambient temperature, which was almost 100, track temperature was 109, almost 110. We felt we turned a very competitive time. And he was consistent once he got down there. So we felt it went very well.
How much can you learn from a Sebring, which is an older track? It's bumpy, if I remember correctly. It used to be.
It still is.
Yeah. And you come up here and you run on a relatively smooth track. Can you learn enough from Sebring to get an idea of setups for here?
You can learn a lot of things. Physics are physics. So if you can make the car brake good and turn good at Sebring, those will translate to almost any road course. Better for St. Pete, Long Beach, places like that, Nashville, where they're going this weekend. But the fact is, the better you can brake at Sebring and get the car to turn and do what the driver wants it to do, should translate just about anywhere. It's going to be at a different degree, obviously, like spring rates will be different and that kind of stuff. But physics are physics, and the car still has to react and do what you need it to do. And the driver has to feel it.
You've worked for a number of teams, none the least of which is one that's rather prominent today. It has a Formula One driver who lucky to be alive after the crash he had, has done well. And I'm talking about Dale Coyne. Dale has had, he's been 25 years, I think it was, before he got his first win, but he's never given up. And he's very competitive the last few years. When you go from one team to another, do you have to learn what they want, or do they hire you to bring what you have?
It depends on where you're going. A lot of, let's say, hypothetically, I left Coyne and went to Ganassi. You're going to walk into Ganassi's, you're going to go, how do you want it done? How do you guys do this? So that you learn their methods. Coming here to Top Gun, we didn't have any infrastructure. We didn't have anybody. So we basically decided how to do it, what to do, and our own procedures. So it kind of depends on where you're going. Like I said, coming here was an open slate. It was a blank book, and we could do it any way we wanted. And that's when you fall back on your experience. Going to some of the other teams, let's say you went to Carpenter or someplace, you're gonna, to me, one of the reasons I think I've survived so long in this business is you don't walk in and go, well, here's how I think it needs to be done. You don't. You walk in and you go, how do you guys want this done?
But you bring the knowledge of how to get to what they want. I assume you understand the
so.
gearing, you understand the suspension.
Right.
Tell you what they want. And of course, if you go to Ganassi, I want to win.
Correct. Yeah.
It's
Right.
not a long conversation there.
No, exactly. Exactly.
But now, if I'm not mistaken, I had heard the rumor that you were going to kind of go into semi-retirement. How's that program working out here at Top Gun?
Yeah. Well, I did go into semi-retirement when I left Coin, and I was doing some fly-in stuff for sports car guys. And I got a call from Bill Throckmorton, the owner of Top Gun, and he told me who the driver was, and I'd worked with RC when I was at Coin. And they're local, they're here, they're in town. And I thought, if I'm going to come out of retirement, this might be the way to do it. And I've enjoyed every second of it. Bill and Stephanie are great people to work for. And RC is a very talented kid, and I hope we can put him where I think he belongs.
Bill and Stephanie are phenomenal. But have you ever run across somebody like Stephanie before?
She's very passionate, and that's okay, because that's what drives most of us to be out at this level. And besides the fact you're super competitive, it's the passion. You don't do this job, as you stated in the opening, 7 days a week, 20 hours a day. You don't do that for a normal job. You have to love what you're doing, and she loves what she does. She's very passionate, and that's okay, because we can make that work for us, not against us. Yeah.
Well, when I first got involved and got to work for a team, I thought they roll the car off the trailer, shine it up a little bit, go out and run. Boy, did I find out that's not the case at all. Holy Toledo.
Nope.
And one of the things that impressed me, and a lot of teams, I think, is the team I work for, they had the car set up when they got to the racetrack. They didn't tear it apart and put it together again. It was ready. So when they got there, they went out on the track. They're ready to go. They had to make adjustments and bring it in, but it amazed me the number of teams that come into a garage, they pull the car and they start taking it apart. So what the hell were you doing before you got here?
Right. It's all preparation, and the races in most cases are won and lost here now, getting ready. You have to pay attention to how you build it, what lines go where, everything's tight. When you get to the racetrack, it should just be maintenance and adjustments for the track conditions and what the driver wants.
How do you, I can remember when I first started, there was a famous one, you probably remember it, the bear rack.
Yep.
Take your car in there and they'd set it up. Now you do it yourself.
Right.
What can you do in the garage, and how does a bear, what it is a rack you put the car up on, and you can change the suspension and the weight and shift it around and make all kind of minuscule changes, which if you don't do it right, when you go through tech, they catch you, go beep, beep, you made a boo-boo.
Yep.
But what can you do on that, on the rack?
Well, obviously each team has their own setup. We call them setup pads.
Yeah.
We level them to the world. Basically, we use a surveyor's level, and we make it level so that your reference plane, which is your setup pad, is the same all the time. So no matter where you go, your reference plane is the same. So on there, you can make all the adjustments you want. You can measure your ride height, your cambers, your toes, your cross weight. You can measure total weight. You can set, wing angles. You can just about do anything on there that you could do in any alignment rack. We just do it, we carry this with us so that our base is always the same. Our platform is always the same platform.
One thing I noticed, and I never really, in fact, I don't think I ever asked anybody, and I did it a lot, is when they're on the rack and you're setting up, you get on the back wing and pounce on it.
Yep.
What does that do?
It does a couple things. We bounce, I nickname them a B&R. It's a bounce and a roll. And you bounce it and then you roll it so that it does a couple things. It takes the change you just made and it settles it into the car. Like sometimes the tires might need to settle a little bit on the pad. And if you've made a ride height adjustment, sometimes when you're on shocks, The shock will hold the car up or down a little bit. You want it to be the same every time. So it's basically settles the car down and makes your readings more consistent and more true.
It's interesting because the average fan sitting in the stands really does not realize, even if they have passed and go through the garage, they don't really realize. They say, look, they're tearing the car apart. There's a reason. They don't do it just because there's nothing else to do and there's nothing on television to watch. There's reasons for it. When you go out and run, you'll notice when they come back into the garage, they start taking the side pods apart and open up and looking to see if there's any damage of any kind.
Right. A lot of what we do in between sessions is done with your eyes and your hands, in that you look everything over, you make sure everything's working like it's supposed to, you make sure there's no line burns, there's nothing going on. If you had an issue during the session, you go fix it. But a lot of times it's just general basic maintenance. The side pods come off so you can have a good look at things. You change tires because you set up on what we call setup tires.
Right.
So you tow back on one set of tires, and you put on your setup tires, which street course has its own set of setup tires. Road course has its own set of setup tires, and the ovals have their own set of setup tires. So you come back and you change those. And while the guys are doing that, you're pumping out the fuel so that you get a good fuel number so that you don't run out during the race.
Yeah.
So you know what the car uses and how much it uses. There's a lot of little things. There's actually quite a list. There's probably 10 or 15 things you do almost every time the car comes in after a session. Bleed the brakes, bleed the clutch. You'll check the car battery. There's now an onboard camera that you change the little chip out of. There's a lot of little things you do. Hopefully you're not tearing it apart unless there's something going on.
Now, can you have believed when you started this, you would come to the day where you have to take a chip out of a camera mounted on a car?
When I first did this, I believe we had about 4 wires in the whole car. One of them was to ground the magneto to shut it off.
Yeah.
One of them was an oil pressure light. It's off a switch on the motor. And one was for the rain light. And that was about all you had. Now, I don't know. I'm going to guess there's 100 miles of wire in these things.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
And it was amazing when if you're watching and you see them take a harness out, you go, good Lord.
Oh,
You could wire your house with what's in there. It's amazing.
Yep.
And something else, I've got it on my car currently. How do they monitor tire pressure when the car is running 200 miles an hour? What's in the thing that registers the weight that you see at the?
Well, there's a sensor inside each tire, and there's 2 versions of this sensor. One just tells you the pressure of the tire, what the pressure is, and it sends it to an antenna, and then that broadcasts it to us in pit lane. There's another version, probably more than 2 versions, but the next version up from there also tells you the inside carcass temperature. And that's even fancier, obviously.
Yeah.
And it does the same thing. It literally registers back to pit lane through antennas in the car what the pressure is, what the carcass temperature is, how hot you're getting the tire. Is it too hot on the inside? Is it too hot on the outside? And that's a kind of a recent development. Obviously, I think Formula One's had them for years, but it's the next step in tire pressure monitors, at least for racing, in that you got the pressure and the temperatures. And there's some, like I said, there's some even fancier than that out there that probably tell them even more than I'm aware of.
Well, something that's always interested me, the team that I worked for a number, about 5 or 6, 7 years, is the owner, former driver Dick Simon,
right,
would come down when the car would come in and he'd measure the temperature himself. He had his own little gadget to measure the temperature. Then he'd sit down on his pit wall and talk to the driver. What do you need? What's it doing? And he told me, I said, why do you measure it? They're doing it. No, I want to do it myself right away. And if the temperature tell you everything, tell you how the car's handling, he said, if the driver tells me what I see in the tires, we're in good shape, then we just fine tune it from there. If he tells me something different than I'm seeing,
There's a lot of truth to that. You know, you can tell a lot. I've always told people that these cars will talk to you. If you know how to listen, and you know how to read them, they'll tell you what they need. They'll tell you what they're doing before you ever talk to the driver. Tire temps are a very good way to tell that. Is you got to get them pretty quick. Pressures are a good way to tell that. If the car's bottoming too much at certain times, there's a lot of little things. If you know what to listen for, so to speak, it'll tell you. So tire temperatures is huge. That one's a really good telltale on what the car's really doing.
Very interesting. How many crew members does a team need? I mean, I know when you come to Indianapolis, they got 20 probably, or 15 anyway, over the wall and the fuel and the whatever else set up, so forth. But you've got 3, your engineer, and of course, Bridget, who I talked to a few weeks ago.
Yep. How
many do you need for a race on race day?
Just to do a pit stop, you need a minimum of 10. You got the 6 guys that go over the wall, which are your 4 tire changers, your air jack, and your fueler. And sometimes there'll be a tear off guy. Just depends on if it needs it or not. And then you need a guy that runs what we call the dead man. So there's a safety on the fuel tank that when we're fueling, you hold it down. If he sees a problem or if something catches fire, he releases that and it stops the flow from the tank, which is a very big safety. So you need him. You need a guy that runs the stop board, so the driver knows where to stop. And then he also will pull the outside hose from the tire changer so they don't run over it when he leaves the pits. And then it's nice to have 2 guys doing what we call tire handlers on the inside, and they also squirt the Buckeye when the guy pulls for fuel. And keep in mind, that doesn't include the guys on the timing stand. That's just to do the pit stop. That's a minimum to do a pit stop. It's about 10 guys. And
in my day, which was a long time ago, we do a lot of practicing. Do you get a chance with your crew to do practice pit stops before you get to the racetrack?
We are actually going to do them tomorrow night right here in the driveway. And then we're going to do them again on Monday with the guys that we're going to use.
That'll be kind of fun to watch. And the driveway here, if you've never been here, part of it goes down a hill when you come here. And in the wintertime, if there's ice on it, they prefer you stop way up in front and walk down if you don't fall and break your neck.
Yes, sir. But, you're right.
There's a lot to that, and the commentators will comment on it. Long stop, 8.5 seconds. I said, good grief, you can't get that done in a gas station in 8.5 seconds.
Right.
So, it's something that's very crucial, and it's very critical to the race to be efficient, quick, because you can gain spots as well as lose them if you're not careful.
Right.
So pit stops were very important.
We're looking, because this group hasn't really been together, we're kind of looking for consistency.
Right.
I'm not looking for a blazing 6-second pit stop, because the next one might be 8 seconds.
Yeah.
Give me 7 seconds every time, and you're probably not going to lose any spots. Might not gain any, but you're not going to lose it. So for us, what we're looking for on Thursday and Monday and then going into the race is consistency. That everybody's getting their timing down and getting what they got to do, and that it's the same every time and everybody's comfortable.
Well, in my time with the team, I got to change a right front tire. And when I did it, there wasn't a speed limit. I never paid any attention to it.
Right.
As being from back in that time, those cars come hauling there real quick.
Yep.
Not that coming in 60 miles an hour, if he runs into you, isn't going to hurt. But I loved it. I thought it was neat. Get out.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I contend that we had less accidents. We had no speed limits. I mean, I understand them and I understand the safety. But back then we had less pit incidences than we do now, because right now, because of the speed limit, a lot of guys just send the car. They don't care who's coming. They don't, because these cars accelerate so quickly, they just send them. And I think that has caused a few more accidents. Like I said, I understand the speed limits and I understand the safety, and I'm not arguing that. But I think back then we used to have less accidents than now.
Yeah, because the crew chief, when he sent it out, would look behind and see who's coming.
Yeah, you had to know. You
They-
had to look down pit lane and go, okay, who's coming and how fast is he coming?
Not that they don't look now, but I think, they're not going that fast, so go.
Right, exactly,
Oops.
exactly.
Well, it's interesting to talk to somebody like yourself who has spent a lifetime doing this. When people say, well, it's a sport. Yeah, it is. But it's a very interesting sport. And the number of things that have come to automotive, more probably from IndyCar than most anywhere else, is through these race cars, through experimentation by the engine manufacturers and suspension people and shocks and all that kind of thing.
Right.
It not only makes it fun to watch, but there's a method to their madness of what they're looking to accomplish, and IndyCar can give them that.
Yep. Go look at the first winner of the Indianapolis 500. What did he have that nobody had ever seen before? Rearview mirror.
Rearview mirror, yeah.
That's where that came from.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a simple thing, belts and the safety that these cars, modern cars are now built like a capsule, more like these race cars are, because they've learned that that's what keeps people safe or with a better chance of survival than just, these great big tanks that we used to drive around back in the day.
And it's interesting, people don't realize that when the car flies apart, it's designed to do that, to absorb the concussion and
Correct.
and protect the driver in the end result.
Right.
How do you see the series now? The years you've been around, how do you see the series and where do you see it going? Do you think it's going in the right direction? Is Jay and so forth doing the right things?
I think so. I see it coming back. Obviously I was around in the heyday when, 70 cars showed up at the Speedway to qualify.
Yep.
And I call that the heyday because, that was stiff, really hard competition. And it's nice to see that coming back. It's slow, but it's coming back. And you've got, like us, a new team. It's not an easy thing to get into, but everybody's been helpful and everybody wants us to succeed, and everybody does everything in their power. The suppliers, the series, IndyCar especially, they do everything they can to help you out. I see it getting better. I see some of its prominence coming back. I see NASCAR kind of looks like it's on a little bit of a decline, and these things are secular. They'll lose people, we'll gain people. It'd be nice to gain those people back that we lost back in war days, as we used to call it. And it's nice to have them back, and they're starting to come back in big numbers, I think.
And I think people are realizing, I get a lot of emails after a race about how competitive and how, was it in the first 6 races, there've been 5 different winners, whatever it is, 10 races
Right.
we've had.
Right.
So that, and if anybody has noticed, and a lot of people have, the younger generation, whoever thought that Scott Dixon wouldn't be the lead car for Ganassi Racing? He's
Yep.
going to struggle to make it, but he's done it before. He can certainly do it again. He has the capability, but these young guys coming along, and there's some good ones coming up from Indy Lights.
Yep.
The series is on a trajectory, and I think being shut down last year, a lot of people found it that had nothing else to do, and this is kind of fun to watch. So they've been following it. The eyes are good.
Yeah, there's times in qualifying there'd be less than a second from first to last.
Oh yeah.
On some of these road courses. You're going to struggle to get any better than that.
Well, that's what makes it fun, and that's what
Yep.
your job is. And again, people don't realize one gear wrong and you're in trouble.
Yep.
There's so
Yep.
many things that can go wrong, and you got to get them all right, and the driver's got to feel comfortable and stab it.
Well, the philosophy that we work under, or that I work under, is when the car hits the racetrack, it's out of our control. What happens out there accident wise, we probably more than likely have nothing to do with that, because it's whatever's going on the racetrack. So it's imperative that we are in control of what can be in control of. The nuts and the bolts, the way the car's assembled, all the setup and all have got to be, there's no room for error. And that's a little hard to live under sometimes, but that's the way I see it, is that we have to be on top of everything that can possibly go wrong or come off or come loose on that race.
And the thing is, and I've commented on this numerous times, and you've worked with a number of drivers, You can set a car up and RC goes on and says, boy, this is great. Somebody else get in the car and say, you got to be kidding. How did you
Yep.
not, how did you not crash this thing?
Yep.
It's funny, the different driving styles and how the one car is good for one guy and isn't worth a hoot for somebody else.
Well, and that goes back to what you said earlier about the Sebring test. We now have a better understanding. He says, here's what the car's doing, be it it's unstable in the rear or it's not turning in. We now know, based on the beginnings of our test, what he means by that. And so now we can adjust accordingly based on, because every driver has their own lingo.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to learn what he means by certain things. And once you learn that, it makes the adjustments more productive and much faster.
Well, this weekend they're in Nashville. Next weekend is a Grand Prix, and Top Gun will be there.
Yes, sir, we will.
And I know there's a lot of people wishing you well and the team well and the driver well, and certainly Fluffy or Stephanie well, so she doesn't go goofy, jumping up and down and carrying on. So it'll be fun to watch. You put a lot of work into this car. You've been working on it ever since it came back from the Speedway.
Yep.
On a daily basis, going through.
Yes, sir.
And they're going back through it after the test. So when you get to the track, hopefully you'll go like hell.
I hope so.
Well, thanks for your time. Good luck to you in the coming event, and hopefully with any luck, you can run a couple more before the end of the year.
That would be nice.
Yes. Well,
Thank you, sir.
thanks for being here.
No worries.
My guest has been Roy Wilkerson. He's the chief mechanic for Top Gun Racing, making their second appearance at the Speedway at the Grand Prix. So if you're out looking around, you look for car number 78.
75.
75, I mean, I'm sorry, car 75. And yell and scream, because that's RC Enerson, and this is his crew chief. We wish them well. We have some more guests upcoming in the coming days, so stick with us until the next time. Don Kay saying thanks for watching. See you again.